Hey, 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 everybody. I am super excited to be here in another edition of What is Your Story with Kim Lebbing, who is somebody I recently connected with. However, energetically, we just clicked, and I felt that she had a lot to offer you all in the community. And so, Kim, I'm going to have you share with our community what it is you do and how you are showing up first in service to yourself and then in service to the world.
Thank you for that. Thank you for having me on. I'm like just super excited to be here.
I'm so honored that you said yes. There's a
Yes,
million places you could be, and you're here with me and the community. So we're grateful.
yes, thank you. Thank you. And it's my first call of the day, so I'm feeling like I'm still like, sipping on the coffee a little bit and
You and me both. Right.
awesome.
So
Awesome. So I am a transformational coach. I guess first who I am, I'm a mom. I have three kids. I love being outside, outdoors, really anything nature I'm in love with, anything nature, except for maybe mosquitoes. And right now we have all those cicadas, which are fun to listen to, but it's kind of gross to walk outside right now.
you know what's so funny is I was on a walk with my niece earlier today, and so I was with my niece and her daughter, and her daughter was asking me, "So Titi, is there any bugs you don't like?" And I'm like, "Nope, I love them all." And she's like, "Blech, I hate mosquitoes," and I had to chuckle. I'm like, I do get your point, but with enough lemongrass and coconut oil, you can ward them off.
True. Totally true.
So you're a mom, but I mean, obviously, I love to highlight the whole of a person. So I'm happy to dig into raising three kids because I only have two, and whoo, I got teens right now, and that's a lot of fun. But transformational coach, which is somebody after my own heart. Um, how did you kind of step into that path? Because you and I both know that is not a career choice for the faint of heart.
No, it is not. And I feel like I didn't really step into it. It was just kind of handed to me.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
actually started out as a health coach because of my kids.
Yeah.
My kids were, I've got one on the autism spectrum. We had autoimmune, ADHD, like all the things. And I was just trying to get everybody feeling better. I had my own issues too,
Yep.
seizures and all kinds of stuff.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. By the way, that was related to gluten. I found out later, which
The
I've healed
seizures.
from. I've healed my gut and now I can eat bread and gluten again. So, side story.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, I think that's so important because, I think there's this idea that a transformational coach is supposed to work with you on a thing, right? It's a business coach or a mindset coach or a fitness coach. But to me, and something that you just highlighted that I love is there's no distinction. It's all inclusive. Like if you're really going to hold space for and witness somebody's unfolding, so to speak, right? Their expansion outside of how they've been conditioned to live, then it really should be a holistic, all parts of the human experience approach, I think. So I think
Yeah.
that's really important to highlight. And
Yeah.
so I'm curious. So you kind of just started doing research on foods and health to
Yeah.
heal your
Yeah.
family.
And we recovered so many things in our family. Like it
Yeah.
was huge. Like before the kids weren't growing, like all kinds of stuff. My daughter was in a size 8 for 3 years. I'm like, that's not normal. We got to do something. So we did
Yeah.
this really strict diet that my doctor recommended, and she was recommending it to pretty much all her patients, but nobody was doing it. So after we went through it, she's like, can you teach my patients
Yeah.
how to do this? That's how it was handed to me.
Yeah.
So, then I was like, voila, you're a health coach.
Yeah.
But what I was discovering with working with people is a lot of the people that had the most chronic conditions also had trauma from the past.
All of them. I'm
Yes.
sorry, but I don't think that there's a distinction there either. And I think
Yeah.
that, and you see the most pervasive health issues, right? I see it all the time. When you really start to dig into the psyche of that individual, there's just severe, either repressed or disassociation, but there's a lot to unpack there from that
Yeah. Yeah,
experience
it
too.
was huge. It was
Yeah,
huge. And honestly, it was my own story. I mean, I
yeah,
grew up with, my dad was verbally abusive. I was made fun of a lot. I didn't talk until I was like, I mean, I was it. I mean, I could, but I didn't.
yeah,
A lot of fear and just crazy things that I had gone through. And I was like, "Huh, this is interesting." And I started to shift to more mindset because I felt like that was the core of
mhm,
everything else. And there's, I don't really, I'll ask about health, but I don't really do that in my coaching anymore. We focus more on the mindset piece and the how they're aligned, who they're being, those pieces. And it made a bigger difference. It made a bigger difference for me. It made a bigger difference in the clients. And I got into neuroscience, which I love. I love. That's a little
okay.
bit,
Yep,
it's like a little bit different than what I had been doing with the mindset coaching. It was, I was kind of incorporating a little bit of health, a little bit of mindset. But then I just fell in love with the neuroscience piece because you could shift people in an instant.
yep,
It was just so life changing to me because, you know, I was like serial entrepreneur.
yeah,
I mean, I kept trying different things, different different kind of coaching or different kind of business over and over again. And I'd get so far and it was like, I couldn't get past this, my
wow,
own. Yeah.
yep,
Yeah. And I knew it had to do with the past. I knew that that's what it was. And I could not, I knew there was something deeper.
yeah,
I had done, I had tried everything. I feel like I read every book. I went to seminars, I did affirmations. Like, I feel like I really dug in to do all the things. I had recovered my health. Um, and I was still like, something's not right. Something's not quite there. And I view it differently now. I know like back then I was looking to be fixed.
yeah.
Yeah.
Instead of being where you were. It's interesting you say that because yesterday, and I shared this with the community on my live this morning, how yesterday I had pockets of real self-judgment and just being incredibly hard on myself. And it was pockets, and I think it's so important to highlight that because I existed in that for years. And now if it's like the moments throughout the day, I can swallow that. And I also think that we resist the duality of ourselves. But when we accept both, that we are both light with dark, and you don't resist it, you accept yourself in the moment as you are rather than who you think you need to be or where you think you need to be. And I truly
Yes.
believe that. And I imagine you understand that too, given that you study neuroscience.
Yeah, yeah, totally. But I have to say, it took me a long time to get there. It took me a long time to realize and really learn that lesson. Um,
It's constantly it's a constant remembering for me. I know it, I feel it, but then, you get in the throes of the darkness, right? I think of what is it, St. John of the Cross, he says the dark night of the soul, which is no joke. You
yeah,
go here. So, but when
yeah,
you don't resist it and you embrace it and you just accept it, there is a joy that you can experience even though you're in a place of ick, you know?
yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
So, I want to kind of backtrack a little bit because I
Okay.
think this is really important to highlight. You shared with the community that you grew up in verbal abuse, and I'd like to unpack that a little bit more, particularly because I think, and maybe I'm wrong, but I know from my own experience, having grown up in a very similar environment, that had profound effects on how I was able to show up into the world in, in my later years, and how I perceived myself um in comparison to other people. So can you talk to me about, when you recognize that that was an issue, and what are the steps that you did to start to resolve that subconscious story that is just so deeply entrenched, especially since, we're ingrained with these words when we're really, really little.
Yeah, yeah, I will. Yeah, so my parents got married really young. So I put some of that, just putting it into perspective, not as an excuse, but for me to understand that they were basically teenagers.
Mhm.
So I was like some little project or something, or I don't even know, but that's kind of how I felt. Like I was there for other people's amusement.
Yeah.
And growing up and always being told like you're not smart or you're dumb or this, I mean, a profound impact. I couldn't, I was always behind in school.
Hmm.
And then I think about it because of what I know now, I'm like, well, of course you were told you were dumb. So of course you would be behind in school. I struggled so much with relationships, trusting people, being afraid. My dad had a big temper, so I always felt like I was walking on eggshells. And even that, there were aspects of that that showed up even after I had done a lot of the deep work,
Oh
later
yeah.
on. Yeah, I mean, after I had done them so much, and I'm like, well, crap, I'm still doing this little pattern that I missed with my family. And there's no reason to, like, absolutely no reason to. It didn't make any sense. But
But
yeah,
it's but I think to highlight for the community, right? Like, you know, the true healing journey is, and I hate to say it because it's so cliche, but it's real. It's like peeling onions, right? You
yes,
peel it and you think that you've got it to the clean white part, then you have to peel more and peel more. And so there's no linear path to healing, and you experience the calm, and then you're reminded that there's more work to do, and then more work to do,
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I think my first inkling that I wanted to get help and be different, I really got to a low point. I was suicidal.
Yeah.
And I was in the hospital for several weeks. Back then, insurance was a little better, and you could, like, I was literally there for, I think, 3 weeks.
Yeah, now
And I
they'll put
really,
you out in 3 days. It's
yeah,
wild to me.
yeah, it is wild. But I was able to really go within, and that's where I feel like I had this spiritual awakening. It didn't, like, it was better, but it wasn't like enough for me. In fact, I got tired of counseling. I was like, finally, like, I am so sick of
Talk
talking about my problems.
Yes, and don't get me wrong, like, I think that there is a place for talking, um, but I truly believe from my perspective, and please feel free to disagree, you can heal in the present moment. When you, experience something, if you're triggered, you know what I mean? I don't wait to go talk to somebody at 2 o'clock on Thursday. I allow myself to get curious. I experience it. If I need to process it with somebody, I have my people, but and then in doing that, you release it and you're unpacking all of this crap.
Yeah, yeah. But I didn't know, like, I didn't know what I didn't know then, but I
Yeah,
literally just got tired of it. And I'm like, I just decided one day I'm not doing that anymore. And
yeah,
it wasn't until I started my businesses years later that I was like, okay, there's a pattern here of me trying to do a business and not getting very far. And I'm like, it's me. I knew it was me. And so I found a mindset coach, and I went to this seminar, drove myself, had a huge amount of anxiety about going. So I was like, I know this is the right thing because I felt
yeah.
so anxious about going. And oh my gosh, it was a freaking mind blowing wake up call. I cried all the way home because he talked a lot about our words, our programming. He was neuroscience trained, but he didn't do the deep stuff.
Yeah.
So it was more of an awakening. And I followed him for years. It was really helpful, but also I can see where I was just spiraling around.
Yeah. Yep. Well, so something that I really want to highlight for the community that I absolutely love that you shared is you felt a lot of anxiety, so you knew you needed to do the thing, right? And I think so often, and sometimes to the detriment of people, is we talk about anxiety and we encourage people to recognize that we don't always remind people you actually have to do the thing. You still have to do the thing, and you did. And the fact that you had that insight and that self-awareness to know, oh, this is really causing me to feel icky, so I'm going to do it. And I think that's how I live a lot of my life too. This feels ick, so I'm going to do it. That's really, really profound. So you talk about, you followed this person for so many years, but you realized you were kind of you essentially got what you needed from him and then needed to move on. And I think that's important to highlight too, because have been profound teachers in my life through books. I worked with a coach later, like now, but not in the past, that for years were my go-to. But as I continued to heal, I realized that they no longer served me. And I think that's a really important piece of the puzzle too, because so often I see people either with physical or mental health issues, anything, stay committed to a person or a process or a program because that's what they know, even though they're no longer achieving the results that they once were. And so I love that you recognize that and shared that with the community too. So you recognize that this is no longer offering you what it once did. What was your next step?
I actually I went through a little bit of a phase of resistance to anything personal growth. This same coach turned out to also be manipulative.
Oh,
So there was like almost some PTSD there. I mean, it's really mind blowing to me that I fell into that, but so did a lot of other people. So
you know what? So I'm actually, might I? Do I have
yeah,
permission to call a spade a spade? And simply because the community needs to hear this. Why judge what is? And here's the thing: is like even yesterday, like I could judge myself for going really low about my experience right now, or I could be like it's an opportunity that I needed to continue to shed light on what it is I need to heal. And for everybody out there doing this work, the come from a place of what is it I was meant to learn, not why did I go through that? Because the why I went through that doesn't serve you. And that's my personal belief.
no, I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
And honestly, I was served well there. Like I learned so much, but there was this dark side of it that a lot of people were pulled into, and I actually pulled a lot of people out of it
Yeah.
later when my eyes were opened. So
But let me I actually want to talk about that a little bit, and
yeah,
I'm curious what your perspective is because you and I both coach. Here's the thing, as a coach, and the way I coach is I hold people accountable. Like that is the thing. It's like because you're never going to want to do it, and until you've kind of wired your brain to do the thing you don't want to do in the first place, you need somebody who's going to be like, "Look, I know you don't want to go for that walk, but get up. We're going for the walk, right?" Um, but I also do not believe that is my job is to teach tools and techniques for a foundation, but to hold space as people figure out what serves them. And I believe that anybody who says you have to do it this way I think that can be detrimental to people because we're so individualized, and the one way that worked for you isn't necessarily going to work for another person, which is why I think you and I both have so many tools, techniques, and knowledge about a myriad of different strategies, because I don't want to be the you have to do it this way.
Right.
Because that does end up getting to be icky sticky. And I have seen a lot of coaches who, I believe, with good intention but unintentionally, are like, no, you're wrong for not doing it this way. And that can be harmful to the
Yeah.
people they're working with.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree. And I see that more with like business strategy. I feel like you must do it this way.
I see it in all facets,
Mhm.
everything. It to me is mind blowing. It's not mind blowing because even I have not become enlightened. So guess what? Kerri has an ego. I just try to be incredibly self aware and recognize when I'm coming from a place that is self serving
Yeah.
rather than in service. And when I'm self-serving, I step back and I pause and I ask myself what I need to come back to a place of in service.
Yeah. 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 I totally agree with that. Um, and can see that. So it served me. It did serve me. I
Yeah.
learned so much. Oh my gosh, I learned so much about myself. So it was a few years before I got back into it again because of that experience. It nearly wrecked my marriage. Like it was very almost mind control like
Wow.
kind of
Yeah.
things going on. So that's a whole other story, but
Well, it's called What's Your Story? So but again, I really I want you to share what feels really good for you, but also
yeah,
that what you're called to share that you believe will serve the community, in a meaningful way. Because again, I do this show because I think our story is our superpower. And when people can see, what we've experienced and what we've navigated, then hopefully somebody can see you and be like, Kim's a person that can help me out of the dark and back into the light.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I will share this about that experience is he was really big on affirmations and talking about one way, like it was all you must do these. He gave us a list and only these, only I can write them. Don't go out and find any more of your own. Like it was like that. And later I figured out that that was like such a dangerous road to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see
So
your face
I'm
going,
curious,
wow.
with that information, what would you share with the community about that narrative? Like, I mean, I have a lot to say, but I want to give you the floor.
Well, I mean, there's so many things to unpack there. I mean, not one person has the answer, period. Like there's, I mean, we're all individual.
Woo! Yes.
Two, on affirmations, I mean, they have to resonate for you with you. If they don't, it's like you're beating up your subconscious mind.
Yep.
I mean, so if they don't resonate, then you're probably doing more damage than good.
Yep. If it doesn't
Um,
feel good and it gives you the ick, walk away.
yeah, yeah. And thirdly, like giving someone that much power because he had a lot of power in my life.
Yeah.
Like he was the first person that had ever opened up this new world to me. So
Yeah.
really, he put himself on a pedestal, but also so a lot of other people did too. So it wasn't just me, but I literally would drop everything if he came in town and I needed to go pick him up. I'd stop making dinner and leave. Like it
Wow.
was
Yeah.
crazy.
But
Um,
again, I think I mean there's so much nuance but beauty in that because I mean think about it, right? One, something that you said a couple times and I'm going to tie it in is verbally abused as a child, right? then specific affirmations, that's still words. And I think what I really want to highlight to the community is words have so much power. And as a former, domestic abuse, I'm a domestic abuse survivor. And verbal abuse survivor as well. The words hurt way more than the punches. I tell people all the time, I know my body can take a beating because I'm gonna rebound unless you kill me. But words have such a profound effect. And so as you were healing, again, it's peeling that onion. You were peeling back the layers. I'm curious, so what was the final straw? Like, what was it that was there a moment when you were like, this is not it for me anymore?
Yeah, I still say it was a God thing because I saw someone, he had a private Facebook group, and I saw someone that was going to his place because he'd bring people into this place for this I don't know, experience.
Yeah.
And something that somebody posted, and I was like, something's not right there. And then I ended up talking to people who had gone down there. He kept inviting me, and the timing never worked out. But there was like, I mean, bizarre stuff going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, really bizarre, inappropriate
Yeah.
kind of things going on. And that I was just really grateful. So I let other people see or know what I was seeing,
Yeah.
and it resonated with them too. And they were like, oh, you're right. There's something that wasn't right, that wasn't clicking. So it's really bizarre. Feels like it should be a Netflix documentary, maybe.
You know, it always, like I said, nothing ceases to amaze me at this point. But yeah, so you took a couple of years to kind of recenter yourself, right? Because in that, I believe that when we step back, we're really kind of stepping back into ourselves, into self trust, into really kind of figuring out what's going to feel right for us. Then what led you back into this space of coaching, into helping heal?
Yeah, so I had met somebody out networking that I just connected with. She's just a beautiful soul. We connected right away, and she invited me to this boot camp. It was like a mindset boot camp, and I knew I needed something to do something because I wasn't even wanting to pick up, like I said, not even a book. I
Yeah.
was so like almost PTSD about it.
Yeah.
And she invited me, and I walked in, and it was so similar to that other guy, but different.
Yeah.
The manipulation was like, the education was there, but the manipulation was not. And I just felt called to do it. Like, let me sign up for the rest of it, the rest of the training. And I did. And I think those first few months, they said I'd sit in the front row and they'd watch me, and my face would be red and white and pink and all kinds of shades because it was so hard to sit through. But
Yeah.
I also knew I needed it.
Yeah.
It was huge.
And so, I know that you've created your own kind of process, right? Within 4 hours, you help people really break uh that subconscious blocking and maybe limiting beliefs and um ideology that keeps them stuck. How did you traverse that path to get to this process? Because it's obviously, you know you went from a hiatus to then being into this space where you once again was really moved and healed and benefited from it. And then what, you just started working with clients in that aspect, or how did you stumble on to what it is you're doing now with people?
Yeah, so I never stopped working with clients. So I did have clients, but some of it was a little bit of mindset, a little bit of health still at this point when I was going
Yeah.
through that training. One of the things, like, I loved the program, but one of the things that also frustrated me was we had to wait until for the big transformation until the very end.
Yeah.
And I was like, why do we have to wait? Like, I knew it was like, I mean, I was just like, I knew that this one thing was like the thing I needed the most. Intuitively knew it. And so when I got out, I was like, I don't think I want to make people wait.
Yeah.
Um, Also, the way it was taught, it was long. My first client was 13 hours straight.
Yeah. That's
And
wild.
yeah, and it's I don't know if you have human design people in your community at all, but I'm a projector. That didn't work for me
Yeah.
like that long. It was like too long. So I was like, I'm gonna figure out how I can we were told we couldn't do it online. So I was like, I'm gonna figure out how I can do this on Zoom because we were approaching the pandemic at that point. And I'm also gonna figure out how to make it shorter. So I took more training.
Yeah.
I signed up for more training and I was able to put, I've done energy work and all kinds of different modalities, and I've been able to pull it all together. And it's really effective. So it's like when I got it down to 4 hours and saw that that result was better or more effective than when I spent all day with someone, and like, why on earth would you do all day? Like, why on earth would
Yeah.
you do
Why on earth
that?
would you do all day? That to me, it's so interesting. We had this conversation offline, and I'm just gonna say, knowing what I know about our human body and the way the brain operates, I cannot fathom doing that type of work for that long in one consecutive sitting. That's just, our bodies can't even handle that, let alone our minds. But anyway, that's just my personal understanding of how my body works. And truthfully, I think when we look at a society that's continuously being told that there's something wrong with them, they have ADD or ADHD because they can't pay attention. I'm like, is that really the case, or is it the structure and the way in which we're set up that is the problem, which I truly believe is the issue. But anyway, so now you offer what to people? What could people expect if they were like, "Oh, this really resonates with me"?
Yeah, so I work with one-on-one clients still, and that's how, I mean, that was the brink of my business. I mean, it was incredible. I was working with sales teams with, one-on-one with this 4-hour rapid results is what I named it. And now I'm teaching coaches the process. So
I love it.
I'm very, very excited about that. I've been doing it kind of in the background, almost secretly, because I wasn't sure if I wanted to really step into, a certification program and
Yeah,
all of that. But it was like it kept coming up. Literally people asking me, how are you doing that? And even people that have went through similar training as me asking, how are you doing it in 4
yeah,
hours?
yeah.
So that's what I'm working on now. What I'm most excited about is that training for coaches. And
Given that you and I just kind of went down a rabbit hole with the first mindset coach that you were working with, is there a process for you to vet people that you teach this program to? And I only ask because I mean I coach a good amount of coaches myself, and I'm like, I'm picky because the thing is to your point, we all have work to do, and that's fine, myself included. I am fully transparent about that. I let my community know I'm very vulnerable. But I think there's a lot of people who we offer up these certifications to, and they learn it, but they don't do the work themselves. And then again, it can be counterproductive to the people that are coming to them to be served.
yeah, yeah, I agree. And yes, I do have a process. So,
Yeah,
yeah, an application, they'll have a conversation with me before they're ever in the program. Another piece of it is because of the type of work it is, you'll be going through the process yourself. So a lot of that, initial stuff that may be lingering from the past, we will, work through just through the process of certification.
yeah, yeah. I love that. So for the community, anybody watching this, are you just specifically working with coaches now, or are you taking one-on-one clients to take them through this process? What is it that you are like, who is your ideal client right now, and what can the community understand about what it is you're offering?
Yeah, so I'm looking for coaches. Like
Okay.
that's what you're going to see. There's been a switch in my marketing. I'm looking for coaches. Ironically, I've had one-on-one clients just coming to me even when I made the switch. So
Yeah.
it's just funny how all that works. But primarily I'm looking for coaches. I've got a free Facebook group that where we're just putting it together. It's, it's new.
Yeah.
That I'm building for coaches that are interested in the neuroscience space and getting faster results for their clients.
I love that. All right, so now I'm going to switch it up because I'm all about what's your story. So, you said you're a mother of three, you're married. Obviously, you have transformed over the course of the years, going to that mindset coach, recognizing, you know, some of the manipulation things went on. How did that impact your children and your husband? And as you heal, right, your family kind of heals. I think that's a natural byproduct. That's why I tell people, if you want to change the world, change yourself, because it's a natural byproduct that the people around you are going to shift. What's that experience been like for you to witness
Oh
that?
gosh, yeah, that's been great too. It wasn't always great. Like I said, I'm like in the beginning with that first coach, like it literally almost destroyed my marriage. And I see now like why that was and who I was being, because I was just kind of, I don't know, it was like I thought I was coming from it was very much an ego space.
Yeah,
I was so wrapped up in my ego.
yeah,
And I'm better than you because I think more positive. It was all coming from that. And not really wanting to deal with anything or really bring anybody along,
yeah,
quite honestly. Uh, however, we've worked through that. My husband and I, we're closer than we ever have been. Now we're approaching 25 years
yay! I
soon,
love
like next
that.
month.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, yeah. And it hasn't been easy, but it's also been like amazing. And
Yep.
our kids are, they've had their own journeys also. So I feel like I know my parenting is probably a little more hands off than some. I'm not like the helicopter mom at all. I'm just like, in some ways I am, but a lot of ways I'm not with um, I they have their own growth and their own journey to go through, but they know I'm here. They know that they have me as a resource. And I support them in whatever choices they're
Yeah.
making. As long as they're being true to themselves. Well,
Oh,
even
so
when they're not, even when
good.
they're not.
Well, no, but I mean, I think that's so profound. You and I parent very similarly, and in fact, it's interesting. I When we set our kids up to make choices for themselves, they build resilience because, like you and I, they're gonna face plant, right? Like the reality is how do you know what's gonna work until you make the choice that didn't work? And then you need a face plant. And when you have people who can sit there and love you through that rather than judge you through that or create this condition or expectation about what we think you should be, then it really gives way for our children to chase what feels really good for them, to feel safe in doing that. So I love that that's how you approach parenting. I think I think about Khalil Gibran's The Prophet, where he says they're not really your children. Like we're not meant
Right.
to tell them who they're supposed to be. We're literally meant to guide them, just like a coach in some ways, and love them. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that I love. So then, I mean, I know you're pivoting your business to train coaches. You've created this really wonderful um program to help support others really break free from subconscious trappings of suffering, is what I say. It's all suffering in my world. So
Right.
What's next for you? Like what is on the horizon for Kim's expansion growth, and what do
Mm.
you hope to I don't know, experience in the next whenever?
Yeah. So, well, one, the getting the certification, going, because that's very new, hasn't even been launched, but I'm working feverishly in the background, getting all that ready. I'm also looking into working with companies and corporations and bringing this to corporate
Yeah.
because it's so needed. And I did that on a smaller scale with a company a while back, which was I just adored. I worked with roofers and they knocked on doors and they had never had anything like this.
Yeah.
And it was just really fulfilling,
Yeah.
and really impactful. They had ended up, better relationships with their wives and girlfriends and spouses or, whatever, but also they made more money.
Yeah.
So that was huge. So that's a next thing on the horizon for me, while I also work on the certification.
Yeah. I love that. Well, with a little bit of time left, what is it that you would want to impart to the community that you feel has had a profound effect on how you experience life now in the present?
Learning to trust myself.
So good.
Like literally, I was so we talked about that a little bit, but I was seeking so much from other people because I was constantly thinking I needed to be fixing something or better at something, and really getting quiet and learning to trust my own intuition was absolutely profound and life changing.
Yeah.
And I apply that to everything, like who I should work with, coach wise, like what my next steps are, and really just taking the next simple step
Yeah.
rather than trying to jump over to like a whole different path.
Yeah. Well, it's discerning. I tell people all the time, like when you start to shift away from the clutter, right? The noise of society, the noise of family conditions and expectations. Then you can start to really feel into what feels good for you. And when you feel good, you're inevitably going to make a better choice for yourself.
Yeah,
Even if
absolutely.
the choice is no choice, right? Something that I really want to highlight for the community that I love that you said is that you said you stepped back and for a couple years you made no choice, but it wasn't not a choice. It was a real choice to honor yourself and just be with what you went through, where you what you gained from that experience, what didn't serve you, so that way you knew moving forward what was going to serve you in the future. And I think so often we're busy chasing the next thing that we don't stop to pause and be like, let's just be. And it's so
Yeah.
funny because as I was asking you the question, in my gut was like, why can't she just pause and be? But it's true, right? Like that's our natural inclination to. So what's the next thing you're gonna do? You obviously want to true. So thank you for highlighting that. I think that's really beautiful.
Yeah, thank you.
So please let everybody know where they can find you. Of course, I'll add this information in the show notes, but if you want to give yourself a plug, please take the time to do.
Yeah, sure. So I'll give you my website and also the Facebook group. Like you can just go to my Facebook profile. It's Kimberly Lebbing. And you'll see a link to the group. And then my website is kimberlylebbing.com.
Yay, easy peasy, just like me. I'm like, let's make it easy.
Yep.
Well, thank you so much, Kim, for your time, your presence, and the gift of you into the community. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me on today.